Hi, my name is Daniel Rogers, and you're watching my Lenten series on the book of First John. Let's hop right into First John chapter 1 and verse 11. He says, "Whoever hates a brother or sister is in darkness, walks in the darkness, and does not know the way to go, because the darkness has brought on blindness." Man, there's so many parallels here between First John and the Gospel of John. Keeping in mind that the Gospel of John, First John, and the book of Revelation are all about the nature of the kingdom of God, the nature of God, and the character of God as revealed through Jesus. And one of the things that John is dealing with in these pastoral epistles is he's dealing with a group of people who think that the kingdom of God is established through violent revolution. John is totally opposed to this idea because the peace that Jesus gives is not the peace as the world gives, as Jesus said to his disciples in the Gospel of John. As Jesus said in Luke chapter 19, had the people known the way of peace, Luke chapter 19, had the people known the way of peace, they would have been saved. But since they didn't, their enemies would set up ramparts around them. And you can see John dispelling this way of thinking in 1 John chapter 1 and verse 11. He says, "Whoever hates a brother or sister is in the darkness." Now remember, there is no darkness in God, as he says in 1 John. Hatred and God are totally incompatible, is what we're getting from John. God does not hate individuals. God does not hate people. He says here that the one who is in the darkness also walks in darkness and does not know the way to go. So people who suggest that the kingdom of God is established through violent revolution don't know what they're talking about. They're under a delusion. They're under blindness. And the delusion and the blindness that are in the back of John's mind all throughout his gospel, all throughout the epistles, and even in the book of Revelation is the delusion of separation. That is the idea that God is distant from the world, that God is separated from the world. When in fact, what we know from Jesus is that God can sit at the table with sinners, is that God can touch lepers. God can comfort a woman who's been caught in adultery. God can hang between two sinners on a cross. God isn't separate from this world because he is so righteous and so holy. No, God moved into the neighborhood, in a sense, in the body of Jesus, because Jesus is God. And so God isn't separate. But when we have this idea of a separate God, we spend all of our time trying to get to the God who's already close by. And in doing so, we establish our own righteousness. And that's what the people in 1 John are trying to do. So they reject Jesus's version of God. They say Jesus didn't come in the flesh. Jesus isn't the Son of God. And they say this so they can go about to set up their own Messiah made in their own image instead of one that looks like God. With that, he says, the darkness has brought on blindness. The darkness is totally incapable of comprehending the light or overtaking the light, as you see in John chapter 1. The delusion cannot understand the beauty of the gospel, the good news that God is not far from each one of us, that the Lord is at hand, that Jesus took on flesh and moved into the neighborhood, as Eugene Peterson says. And with that, we'll get into John's little hymn here in the next video.